All right, guys. Anthony with Austin Historical Weapons Guild here. Once again, we are shooting from Vigilante here in Austin, Texas. They're letting us use their space while they're keeping things safe and keeping everyone out and at home. Going into Sword and Buckler, going into basically the counter for the Siege Second, Siege Third, those type positions. So if you recall, we talked about Siege Second being kind of this weird outside position like this, used to kind of bait the attack and make the enemy strike to this opening as you move in. So I'd be setting out, sieging in, catching, pressing away, driving through. So as I'm here, I would drive, they'd attack or not. I catch through, bring it down to seventh. Once I'm down here, I can start making my actions happen, my displacements happen. So like everything else, these sieges, Siege Second, Siege Third, have counters of their own. So we're gonna pretend now that I'm the person in second. My opponent is a step away, so they've sieged in. This will be their placeholder for Siege Second. That's the best we can do. What I'm gonna do, I think, is just kind of shutting the door. I'm gonna bring the sword straight across, matching their position like so, and shutting off this line. So again, from here, I'm in second. As they siege in, they're in this position over here. Not close enough for me to just hit them in the face, but I need to do something with them before they come out. All I'm doing is bringing my sword across, closing off that line, extending through there. So coming out like this, again, keeping your hands together, setting up actions, reactions, stuff to drive through, stuff to follow off of, stuff to move through. So really now just getting used to this position of you're in second ward and your dominant shoulder. As this attack comes in, press off this line, push this away. As you can see, this is putting flat to flat solid pressure here, pressing this out. And this is counteracting my opponent trying to bring their sword across and through, right? As I'm coming off, I'm basically shutting this line off and giving myself all this space to work with, to play with, and work from there. So obviously, a lot of different options, a lot of different scenarios are coming in because already we are 2 or 3 actions deep into a play, into a setup. So there's a lot of variables, and the manuscript kind of accounts for that by saying there's 3 options you can kind of do and choose from, pick from what works best. And I'll throw in a fourth as well, that if I'm here, I can press this out, lock this out. If they're going to let this press down and I can go back to seventh from here, even better. That's not something that the manuscript talks about. I kind of assume at this point that it's a given, right? Anytime you make a bind, this is what we're looking for. So they have these 3 additional options that you can build off of and add to your repertoire. And again, this goes back to this idea that all these positions we're finding that we're creating, if you're in an extended bind work sword fight in and out a lot, you might find this position lots of other ways. And these are options that start setting up things you can do from here. So just really quick, getting used to this motion. Again, I'm not taking this step. I want to make this bind, find out what happens, and then I might decide where I want to step, how I want to step, what I want to do with my footwork, and how that's going to affect my sword work. But keeping yourself safe in your wards, keeping these wards as positions of safety and structure and control. Don't want to say power, but right from here, I can displace this, put it away, and then yes, I need to react to what they're doing, but now they're stuck reacting to what I'm doing as well because I'm not giving them this cut that they're looking for. So reaction to second ward, there are 3. First, and kind of the easiest option, the one I like the most. So I press this out. As he's driving in or as I'm driving in, as we're both driving in, all I'm going to do is turn my long edge, which is kind of coming towards the camera, back away into my opponent's head. Really straightforward, really simple. And this is really good if they're coming in strong and hard against this pusher, pressing in. People who've done longsword, I'm familiar with the German longsword. This is a straight up KDF Duplieren, right? Where you've made a connection here, they're putting hard pressure into your sword, you turn your wrist, come back across. Because their sword is pushing against yours, it's going to go away from you, not into your face. So as you come off here, you can just turn and slice this through, making a slice, making a snit, or whatever kind of attack you're looking for from there. But you get to drive this all the way down and through. I can amplify this with my footwork. If I'm turning this across here, if I walk off to my left as I slide this through, you can see what went from a kind of not safe position where this sword disengages. If I take my step into this position, I can close this line with my buckler, keep myself safe, keep myself protected while I drive an attack. And a nice bonus, if their buckler's over here somewhere, they're not going to be able to flail around and hit me with it. So that's the first option. As I said, that's kind of the easiest. It's kind of my favorite. It's the one that sort of applies and makes the most sense as you're playing with this, right? Just a simple here, press through and out. You can isolate their sword, control, and drive through. The other option from the manuscript that I have a much harder time trying to get off of is it says you can cut to either side of their head. One option is here, the second option is here. And to me, this is a much harder setup, and it kind of assumes that your opponent isn't pushing toward you or even to my other side, right? We're not going to pass like people and horse. Some reason they're coming, so we're passing like this. And this is when I can kind of work to the opposite side. So this, I'm going to assume we're a little bit further away. They're a little bit more to my buckler side, to my left side. So as I make this, maybe this doesn't become an option anymore. So I try to step in. I don't get to make that safe connection that I'm looking for when I'm doing this. Instead, we're way over here, and I'm going to kind of drive, disengage with a kind of a doubling type action. I'm just pulling back and striking. Or if you'd like, you can totally take this here and bring that back edge across as you kind of move away and through as well, which is very similar to a longsword kind of back edge cut as Zwerchau, but it's not as strong feeling because you don't have that second hand to lever and pull through. So again, if we're going to assume instead of being nice and close like we're this first one, I can just snap in and drive through. If they're farther away, if they're farther to my left, I come across my body with this. As I drive in, I disengage and come across. So, third option. This works much better if we're closer front to back. If they're really charging in, if they're really stepping in, whatever the reason of the scenario, this is when I find this next step useful. This is called a Dirktrecht, which is a treading past or a stepping through. And it's kind of described as just kind of a slice and a press as you pass through. There's not a great description of it. The picture kind of shows a sword over their arms, something like this, but it's not terribly evocative, not clearly descriptive. This is how I wound up doing it. So again, I'm in my second ward. They siege in into my siege of second like this. I come in, I meet them halfway. So I said this one works a lot better if I'm a little bit closer. So now I'm too close to start making these sword changes work, right? If I take this step, now I'm striking with my strong. We'll ignore this for now. Striking with the strong, that's not a good strike. At this point, I'm better off kind of punching them or using my other weapon, right? Same thing over here. If I step through, again, I'm coming hard on the strong, hard with the cross. It would still be uncomfortable. Like, I'm not going to say any kind of sword strike is useless, but this is what we're looking for. So the feeling to me is if we're this close, if we're a little bit too close, or I'm just out of range of that strike, but a step takes me a little bit too close to them, this is when you can do that Dirktrecht. As you pass through, whether I pass left or right, doesn't really matter. We're just going to turn our blade and drive down their weapon into their arms and suppressing everything. So again, a little bit closer. I'm here. I'm just going to take this, ride this down as I kind of walk past, walk through. And I can do this walking either direction. And honestly, if you get a nice lock here and you step this way with it, you get some of those nice grapple setups as well if this doesn't work. Or you can even use it to set up into that grapple, right? All these things, all these positions are fairly holistic. They're kind of meant to be interwoven, interworked, interchanged. And there's not a lot of things that says this is the only time you do this. I'm a strong believer that the manuscripts teach us how to fight, how to react, what to do, and it's up to us to find the when. So there's no one set play like this is the only time you do this thing. But anytime I feel a sword on me like this and we're this far away and my weight's on my left foot, that's when this should happen. And you want it to happen automatically, unconsciously as you kind of follow after. So I'm going to re-angle this a little bit, do the same three things again, just to kind of give a different, hopefully a better view, more useful view than the profile. So real quick for a nice compare contrast, starting here, second, we're a good distance away, right? I take my one step and I'm here. So as I come across with my counter to my siege, I'm going to step across, cut to the same side. Notice keeping the buckler together, pressing out, locking control. If they are same distance apart, but now they're way to my left. So as I shut this line off, I really can't make this. I'm coming around this side and doubling back through. Whether you do it with the long edge or the short edge, situational, do what feels best for you. But the idea becomes, I can't really make this happen as nicely anymore. So I'm going to fade to my other side and working to the outside, moving around, keeping myself safe. Third option, we're half a step closer, whether that's because they're more aggressive, because I'm taller than they are, doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that for this to work best, it works better for a slightly closer distance here, where this kind of okay, less useful strike is going to happen, but I still can't hit them without a step or overcommitting on a lean or something like that. So I come in, set this off as I step, just bringing it down, controlling, slicing the arm, setting up a grapple, whatever else. So same things, slightly different angle now. If I can move this without killing anything. All right, so again, I'm a nice solid step away, starting my second ward. I shut off the siege of second. I step across, coming to the outside. So here you can really start to see my footwork. I'm here, I'm stepping into the sword, into the weapon, around past my opponent to move through. Second option, they're shading off to my left side more, and I can't make this step through happen as nicely without losing control of the sword bind. So as I come here, I'm going to step off the other side and make my strike. Here and around. If you prefer with the back edge, here, driving up, short edge cut there. Third option, a little bit closer, just out of reach for a strike, without a step, with a step, a bit too close. So same thing here, I'm stepping, driving through, bringing this down. So those are the three options from the counter to the siege of second. I know these are really long, complicated. So we had siege of second, which is here. Well, so second ward is here, outside your dominant shoulder, buckler forward, throwing cuts, anything like that. That's second ward. Sieging second, other than using half shield, we have this position here. Again, doesn't matter which step put us forward. We're looking to invite this strike, which is what second ward wants to do. Once they do, catch, push it down, pressing through options. If you're in second now and someone approaches you in this position, all you want to do, strike out the sword, flat to flat, keep it high, keep it locked out, keep it pressed away. Obviously, keep your buckler together, keep your hand safe. From here, we have those three options: strike to the head, other strike to the other side, or stepping through, treading through, pressing down. So that's the siege of second. And the counter to siege of second, siege of third kind of gets hand waved away in the same way where they basically say that, yeah, it's everything you can do on second, you do the siege of third, just do it again. Probably not going to touch on that. I don't like it nearly as much. It's not nearly as pretty. I do love a good siege of third, though, being able to drive in against it. So again, siege of third, if second is point up, third is point down, right? So sieging second, sieging third. And this is where righty versus lefty gets really interesting, because we don't really care If their arms are crossed, we care about which shoulder things are coming from. So for me, as a right-handed person, this is second ward. If I'm magically lefty, this is third. However, if I'm fighting a lefty and they're fighting from their right shoulder, even though it's their third ward, I'm going to siege it like it's second. So I know that was confusing, and I don't know if there's a better way to talk about that without live demonstrations, but I'll try it again. I don't care. So we call this siege of second. This is sieging the right shoulder. This is sieging the left shoulder. And that's kind of an easy way to think about that, where if I'm fighting a lefty, I'm in third, they should siege like this. And that's how that starts to play out and makes a lot of sense as you start playing with it, because from here, no matter which hand is holding the weapon, the attack is probably coming from this angle. So once you know that, you can figure out how to bait the attack, counter the attack, and drive into control. So last thing, because this may be the last Sword and Buckler video, we'll see what shows up for next week, is I want to talk a little bit about Fiddlebow, or Vittelpoge. And this is often misapplied, misused, because it feels really cool to use it as a siege. But it's not, it's a ward, and it has a whole set of other implications from that. So Fiddlebow is shown buckler extended, sword over the forearm. It sets up to this position here as a reaction, or even as a siege if you prefer, but Fiddlebow is this. And it's baiting an attack, driving it in. And this is when, using this is when you start really getting able to modify and tweak and cheat with some of the rules from 133. So we've talked a lot about always sieging forward, always driving in, always taking that center, making the attack and committing to it, and just always going forward. And I'll tell you right now, if you've been following along for 7 weeks, 8 weeks, however long this has been, is that's a gross oversimplification where it's pretty much a lie. It's a great starting point, and it's really important to get that habit, to be able to be used to and be confident in your ability to go from a ward into a strong siege and immediately out to make your attack and drive through and hit the other person. And I can't tell you how many times that has won me rounds and exchanges and matches in Sword and Buckler fights. That being said, against a more skilled opponent, someone who has better measure, or has good measure at least, and good control, and knows what's going on, it becomes a cat and mouse game. So if I'm in a siege or ward here, I might siege in a little bit, see if they have any reaction to it, and then back off and find a new ward to go to. And I might siege here a little bit, see if they have any option to that, back off and see what's going on. And this kind of forward and back motion that I like to tie into using Fiddlebow really well. So if you're fighting someone who's really aggressive and likes coming and wants to clash Sword and Buckler like it's long swords, where I step forward, they step forward, and everyone tries not to double and hit themselves in the head, this is a great application. So you can come in to half shield, see what they're going, bait a reaction, and you can fall back into Fiddlebow. And now in my ward, now in my safe place, if I need to go to control really quickly, I can find a long point, I can find half shield, I can find something to cover myself. If they're nice and take this big baited swing towards your head that everyone wants to do, when your sword is down, Fiddlebow, you rise up, get that sword over the arm, buckler high. You want to catch it on your sword, but it's braced across your arm, and buckler's there for good measure, and you're just going to wrap and step through. So with my helpful little pal here, what we're looking to emulate is they're driving in, Fiddlebow, as they attack, as they overreact, or whatever they're doing wrong, raising this, notice my sword's making contact, and from here I can step under my weapon, wrap this up, and work from there. Unsurprisingly, we see a lot of this in the Dusak stuff we've talked about, from the Bogard, where it's the same position, right? But here I start low, because this is my ward, this is my safe position. I want to move to this as an option, whether you can think about it moving this as a siege, to bait an attack where you better do something or I'm going to hit you. especially if they're in second. And again, none of these interpretations, none of these options are talked about in the manuscript. This is purely conjecture and application. Fiddlebows or ward. I don't walk up to somebody like this because now I'm too close, you're going to hit me in the face. I need to make you walk up to me like this, or the alternative is using this to kind of bait you in and then having options to work out of from here as you attack, as you move closer. So I think that's it for tonight. We did a lot of stuff diving into the counters of Siege of Second, how you can apply the counter of Siege of Third, and then a little bit of Fiddlebow. But so I think this will probably be the last Sword and Buckler, unless people